to some extent, you absolutely need to say some of their words, but I'm looking to see the scene, right? Not the words.
If you got something, let it rip.
I'm never going to do this again.
Everybody grapples with this idea that you're really a fraud.
Like, I'm alive.
And that's when it clicked with me. And I thought, these are not superheroes. These are just men that can do super things.
This is Matt Del Negro, and you are listening to the new stripped down 10,000 No's. All right, Kellie Roy has racked up over 100 credits in the past 2 decades, casting everything from art house indies to huge blockbusters like the Aquaman franchise, giant box office champions like the installments of Insidious, The Conjuring, Furious 7, XXX, and many, many more. When she sat down with the members of our 10,000 No's Insiders Community, Kellie shared helpful hints on how casting directors want to help actors get the job. Kellie helped yours truly win my role in LaRoy, Texas, which will be coming out in select theaters and streaming on demand April 12th, so check that out. We discussed the different opportunities that actors have when auditioning for a blockbuster versus an indie, how actors can give themselves the best shot at getting the role by working alongside casting directors, and much, much more. Here she is, Kellie Roy.
What we do here is go back.
Most times I talk to casting directors, they seem to all have a lot of stories of like where actors sabotage themselves, and I'm sure you will too. It'd be good for these guys to hear some of those stories so they can avoid those pitfalls, because I'm guessing you're going to tell some, and I've probably done some of those very same things over the years. So I guess we could kind of start with, like, were you an actor early on? Like when you were younger, what got you into this?
My older brother was an actor. So watching him kind of dabble with it, but yeah, I mean, I did school plays. You know, I was the evil nurse Ratchet in the middle school play. Elementary school play. And then I did the musical Annie, and I was in there. And so I was doing little stuff like that. But then I did speech and debate at my high school. Like, I did the speech, obviously not the debate. And it wasn't until later that I realized, like, that was really auditioning, right? Like, you go into a room, you perform your monologue, you're competing, but you're competing in an audition setting, right? So we had the 3, volunteer parents who are judging us. We walk in the room, there's no one else, and then we go out, right? And so I did that throughout high school. I loved it. But I mostly just really loved also watching the competitions as well. So after college, I mean, I was a basketball player, and I went to San Francisco State for basketball after Ventura College. And I went up there though for film school because I knew they had a really good film program. And I knew I didn't want to be an actor. That was my brother. He was doing the acting. He went to UCLA theater school and all that. But for me, I just was like, I just really appreciate, like, watching them perform. I knew I wasn't the actor, but I was like, what do you do when you see Margot Martindale as the waitress and in that movie, and you're like, I wish other people could every time I see her, I just love her. More people should see her. Like, what job is that? And so I knew I wanted to be a casting director when I went to San Francisco State to finish up school. And I was like the only person in film school who wasn't trying to be a director or, a writer or something. And they're like, so what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to be a casting director. And they're like, what is that? They're like, we're anti-Hollywood. And I'm like, okay, all right. So yeah, I learning about studying film, learning about the process. And then my middle brother, he was working at CAA for a big agent. And when I got out of school, that's where he was working. And so when I was like, do you know any casting directors? He was like mentioning people like Ann McCarthy, and who's now my partner. And so like, oh, you should meet them. So I ended up interning until just for 6 months or whatever, and then they had an opening, and I've been with Annie ever since. And then
Wow.
we built the company more from there. So
Where
yeah.
did you guys grow up that you had a brother who was an actor and another brother CAA? And you're a
I
casting.
know.
Are your parents in the business? Is that
Actually, my dad was an entertainer, but he was a singer. He was in a famous group called the Young Americans. You guys have ever heard of? It's a young singing group, and back then they would perform on variety shows. So he performed instruments and sang, and they would travel around on the Mitzi Gaynor show or whatever, performing. So he was a performer and acted and whatnot. Yeah.
okay? So you had it kind of in the family.
In the family, but Southern California, Ventura County. Yeah. Yeah. So growing up around here, it wasn't like we really didn't know a ton of people in the business or anything like that. It was like, Sean, my middle brother, he found his way into a mailroom, right? And my brother Ryan, he worked his way hard as an actor. So no one, I mean, yeah,
Right.
I had
Oh,
a
but I
leg
mean,
up in that
yeah,
way.
no, I mean, it's just different. Like I always tell the story of for myself. It's like when we got a VCR when I was younger,
Yeah.
we got Raiders of the Lost Ark, the VHS with it, and I watched it probably like 25 or 30 times. I knew every line in the movie. But like if you asked me, did I really realize that Harrison Ford was a guy whose job was to go to work and pretend to be Indiana? I don't know that I mean, I guess maybe I would have figured that out, but I just was like,
Right.
Indiana Jones. Like I didn't even know. It was so off the radar for me when I was a kid that at least you were like semi adjacent to it. You know, you had a father who was an entertainer.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what's interesting about your like being in film school, but wanting to be a casting director, or even the speech, like liking watching the competition the way, so to let everybody know, the way Kelly and I don't think we met this way, but really where we connected um,
Hmm.
was I made an audition tape for this movie LaRoy, which some of you have heard me talk about, that I ended up getting because Kelly was a real champion of it. But she did something that a lot of casting directors don't necessarily do, but it shows her appreciation of the art form. I made an audition tape and my managers and agents called or emailed and they said, "Hey, we got a really nice message from Kelly about your audition tape." And she sent like a really very generous email to them about my audition tape. So I emailed her and just said, "Hey, thank you so much." Regardless, like usually that kind of thing happens and you still don't get the job, and and basically I didn't get that job. I mean, I think that job went away. I remember it going, I'm sure they offered it to 16 other people in the interim, and then I got a call like a month or two later and they're like, "You got LaRoy," and I'm like, "Wait, really?" And they're like, "No, you got it." And I emailed Kelly again and I just said thank you, and she said, and it was your just sincere kind of way you responded was, "Just so you guys know, we love when the right person gets the job too." I think a lot of times actors will pit casting directors against themselves because they think like, well, they didn't give me the job and it was their, and they don't realize that like the casting directors actually bringing you in and trying to show you they want the best person to get the job. And it's sometimes that's lost in translation. And you were so kind, and it's not that normal for what you did, and it was very much appreciated. But now seeing like where you came from, it's like, oh, that makes sense to me, you know.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, yeah, we pride ourselves on yeah, I mean, my coworkers and I, like, we love what we do. We love what we do. And they joke that they'll make me a t-shirt that says I care. But I mean, I do care. I care about the scripts we get. I want to, we want to believe in them. We want to sell, but we care about the actors. And I know that sometimes that, like you said, gets lost. But we appreciate the art. Like we are fans. We are fans as well. Like we're not just these random people, right? And here's a good way to explain it. Directors, doesn't matter how many movies they've made, will still sometimes ask us this funny question, which is, who did you picture when you were reading that script? And I was even telling a friend of mine the other day, like a director, like I that's not how we work. Like we don't read the script and picture someone, because as we explain it, it's not our movie. It's your vision, right? We're bringing your vision to life, and we're going to bring you a bunch of actors who are all going to bring their own take on it. There's a million different people who can bring this to life. Why am I going to picture like one person, right? We have to be open as casting directors, flexible. So I'm not going to focus in on like, this is the one person who can play this role. That doesn't do your script service.
Now, I have a question. You did, so LaRoy, the one that I did through Kelly, was like a $2 million indie film, really cool, like kind of hip cast. Steve Zahn, John Magaro. No, it was a really cool cast. The movie's done really well. It's not even out yet, but at festivals, it's done really well. You did that.
Thank you.
There was kind of this very indie vibe. And you've also done the Aquaman franchise. You've also done, I don't know if you've done all of the Fast and Furious, but I know you've done
just one.
Just one. Okay. But
because it was James. Yeah. Same director as Aquaman. Yeah.
Okay. So you've done these huge, is there a different lens that you put on when you're casting like a huge tentpole film versus an indie? Does the actors' credits come more into play? Like, is there anything different, or is it just exact same thing? It just get the right person?
Actually, interestingly enough, I sometimes feel like that the roles that we audition, I feel like it almost switches about the credits. And the credits aren't what we care about. Like we're looking for the best person to bring that role to life. The one who makes us, when we're watching, going, oh my God, like I want to keep watching them. If I want to watch them for 2 hours, somebody else is going to want to watch them for 2 hours. They're captivating. They're charismatic. They jump off the screen. They bring this role to life, right? That's our main concern, right? What we're like, oh my gosh, this is an exciting audition. Like when I watched you, Matt, and I'm like, everybody else needs to see this. That's what I get excited about, right? But when you're doing like a Fast 7 or an Aquaman, like everyone will come in and audition for it, when we're auditioning people for that, we already have the big names attached, right? We don't need the names to audition. Names will audition, probably. It depends on what you think is a name, right? That's all in the eye of the beholder. But at the end of the day, we're not looking for that. We have more freedom, in those cases. But when we are casting a LaRoy, we have to take into account that finding the happy medium of this person is the right person for the role, and maybe they can help your movie get seen a little bit more. We're trying to make sure that movie gets seen. So we're trying to find the marriage of that. We don't have to worry. Aquaman is going to get in theaters. Right. So we get to discover people a lot of times in those bigger movies, that we know, the studio movies.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Which is cool and interesting for people to hear. It's almost like a reverse of what I think people might think, because they don't realize like, oh, that, yeah, like, Jason Momoa's and, all of the big roles are taken. So yeah. It out with what's going to be the most interesting thing. And I had Shane on, Shane Atkinson is the writer director of LaRoy. So we had him on Insiders. So some of these guys were, and Yeah, he talked about that kind of prior to LaRoy. What sent him to making LaRoy was that he had done these movies that people were like, this is an amazing script, and then they're like, we're gonna get Brad Pitt, and then he would sit waiting for like 3 years to get something done because they're like, you can do this, but you got to cast, whoever,
Yeah.
some 80s sitcom star that like is something overseas but is totally wrong for the role. And he finally
Yeah.
was like, I want to just make a movie. And you still have it within there. You had to get Steve Zahn, Steve Zahn's worth something on the indie film scene. He's going to get you money. He's going to get you, so.
Well, Matt, I could do a whole TED talk, if you will, on my frustration with trying to make indies get made. I could absolutely do that, but I'll try and hold back because it's frustrating. Because it's like, when I first read LaRoy and met Shane and the team, like I was just like, I have to make this, right? What can I do? So for me, I always amounted to pushing a rock up a hill is making indie films. And so I was pushing a rock up a hill for 2 years. And it's funny, like the people in my life, because I get really excited and passionate about my work, they're like, didn't you make that like 2 years? No, I've just been trying to make this I know you guys are all sick of me talking. Yep, still trying to do this and this with LaRoy, like I got to get this happen. So I try different strategies, right? That's my job. Or maybe it's not every casting director, but that's what I do. I'm like, okay, I'm in this with you. What can we do to make this be seen? Let's find the strategy. So when we get to the auditions for LaRoy, that's just the icing on top of the cake, because I've been trying to get this made for so long. And comedies are so hard, like to get finance, to have backing. So it's
Why
rare.
is that? Because I would always think that the thing about a comedy, I've always said this, and I guess maybe I'm wrong. I always said, like, if you're making an indie film, you make a horror film, some type of psychological or a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if people are scared or they laugh, that's, that it worked, and you can. So it seems to me like if you have something that's funny, it could actually break through because it actually is making people laugh, or something that actually scares people. Like,
Yeah.
but no, you're saying.
No. I mean, a lot of times it's like, yeah, that's great. Let's get Steve Carell, and you've got a movie that you can make. And it's like, okay, they have that select group of people that they think will get it made. It's, again, I could go into a long talk about these financing, but it is the thing where it's not as safe. It doesn't feel as secure for them to get their money back to make those. But genre transcends. So, but even the genre movies can be frustrating to get made, where I just have to keep reminding these producers to remind their financiers, dude, you keep trying to reference, Insidious and the Conjuring, these movies, like, but Insidious, yeah, like James was trying, he had Saw, but that was like one of the few last movies we did where it's like we're all as a group together making this cool movie, and then it became this bigger thing, right? But we weren't casting names. Rose Byrne, yeah, she had it's a name to some people, and Patrick Wilson's a name to some people, but not to the foreign financing people, right? Because it doesn't matter who's in these. People see the horror movie, the scary movie for what it is, what it's about. So that's why it's so much fun. We love to cast those projects because for the most part, we should get a little bit more freedom in just finding the right people for the role, and the genre sells the movie instead of the actors.
Yeah.
Because that's fun for us. We love to give people their shot.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, question for you that I think probably everybody here is dying to know. You historically were in the room with actors. That's just what we did. And I remember, it was actually City on a Hill was off a tape. That was random at the time. I mean, I made a lot of tapes over the years,
Yeah.
but they were few and far between
Yeah.
compared to now, where I literally have this office studio because everything is a self-tape. What from your vantage point, what are the pros and cons of the self-tape? And what are some missteps that you saw people do in the rooms? And then what are some missteps that you see people do with self-tapes?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I loved being in the room, and that was one of my favorite things, connecting with the actors, getting there's a trust that happens. We relax them, and then we make sure they understand that we're on their team. We're there to collaborate, get the best take, right? I thrived off of that. I grieved it when we lost it. It was really hard to, but luckily my son got very entertaining stories at night, because I would have to do all my voices there. But yeah, we loved it. Now we are transitioning back into at least live, like virtual auditions. But I will tell you, I had not been able to give a direct direction for auditions like live since pre-pandemic until the fall for Life of Chuck. Like I hadn't gotten to do it because all the callbacks were with the directors. We don't do like a stage in between. It wasn't like, well, let me read them live and then you can. Like, we just know, like, we don't need to suss you out more and make you jump through more hoops. The less hoops, the better. Like, we see it. The only people that usually need the extra hoops we're fighting against is maybe our director and producer that are adding more hoops. Casting directors usually were like, we know already, like, what we want, right? So it's been a lot of fun dipping back in there, and that'll be the new normal. But it self-tape, if we're talking specifically self-tape, the things that you should be careful of are, as I was telling Matt, like what's in your background, right? Like, I don't have an actor set up, like I come back here,
Tell them what you had, admit what you had back then.
And then I took off my mug that says I like her butt, that my wonderful partner gave me up there. I took them off, and you didn't see our mugs. I left that, but it's very distracting when we see a bunch of Amazon boxes, as Michelle in our office was like, oh, make sure you tell them that on the Zoom. But like, because we all watch them, right? So it's like a team effort.
I mean, people don't. I just assumed everybody at least had, like, whether a painted wall or a sheet.
No.
No.
Well, that is great. Look, we are not going to go out and tell you spend a bunch of money. Like, if you just took off the stuff on the wall behind you that I have, just find a blank wall. That's all you need. If you don't have a blank wall, then find something to, like a sheet or whatever, if you can. But the point is, like, we've seen auditions where people are standing in front of their open closets, and what are you, as a viewer, I'm sure you guys have already been like trying to look at the picture, your eyes go everywhere, right? I'm looking at some of the people over there, and oops, I put a thumbs up thing.
No, we keep figuring out how this works. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We're all perplexed by it. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, like I see Sarah over there right now, and I'm, if she was self-taping with that, which obviously you're not, you're just Zooming, then that's a distraction. Why? Because there's so many different things. And we're not just looking at it from the perspective of, like, a casting director doesn't know how to, concentrate. We're trying to explain to you that producers and directors are human, and they'll be like distracted and not paying attention to you, right? So these are the kind of things that we see are pitfalls. I was trying to think about some stuff that you might ask and try to prepare, but yeah, I think a big thing about live auditions is, you know, like, you really need to trust the casting director. I have had times, mostly I would say it's been a couple of older guys who've been in the business for a long time who don't want to take direction from the casting director, and so they don't trust you. So like, I've literally given like, okay, so let's do it again, and let's do it this way, right? When I say let's do it again, it doesn't mean what the hell did you just do, right? Because it's a take you had. You got to give us a take. You give us something, and then we see it and we go, okay, like, as you're reading, like, I'm adjusting in my head what I'm responding to, right? And how I think it comes off the page based off of the vision I'm hearing. So I'm doing all this in my head while you're giving me your performance. I'm reading with you because that's what I like to do if I'm doing it in person or live virtual. And then I'm giving you stuff that I think will get closer to bringing it to life based on what I know. You need to let me help you. You need to let me help you. You cannot be resistant. It has been astounding to hear very few actors, because if you think about like how many actors I've been in an audition with, like, I can't even tell you the amount, right? It's, you know, and Matt, how many times have you auditioned? You know, a million times, right? But in few times that stand out, it's like, you know, that face, like, do they notice it when I go, what? Because they'll be like, no, I think that's good. I'm like, okay. So what you're telling me, and I'm not saying this, is that you're not collaborative. So how can I trust on set? I don't care who you are. I don't care what movies you've done, what TV shows you've started. If you treat the person in the room who's trying to help you get the job like that, then how are we going to trust that you're not going to treat our director like you know better than them? Like, we're there standing in for them. So I used to call it my crazy bell in the room, like watching for the crazy bell to go off and be like, I can't trust you on set. Can I trust you on set? That is a huge thing I'm looking for, right? Are you going to be there to help bring this to life, or are you there just because you know the best thing for this character, right?
Yeah. It's that's the thing. I've actually come to embrace the self-tape, because I'll sometimes come in, depending on what it is, sometimes come in and do like a camera test the day before. Like, how do I want to shoot it? How do I want to frame it? How do I want to light it? Work out my eye lines, kind of thing. And then sometimes I'll come in and I'll do that. And I can do as many, I'm crazy, so I could do 40 takes if I want to. I just do it until I think it's good. And if I'm like, if it's good and they don't like it, well, I guess they just don't want me, but at least I know I did my part. What I miss is what you're talking about, which is that ability to go, yeah, this is my take on it. Let me hear what you have to say. Okay. Yeah, I'll try it that way, and show them that I can take direction. And that's a frustrating thing. So now we are getting that with the Zoom call. I just told you about the Zoom callback I had, and I knew the director, and she had told me, I knew because she had texted me before the callback, like she liked my audition. But in the audition with everybody else on the call, I did it kind of along the lines of what the audition tape was, but then she took like a complete opposite direction. And I was just like, one, I did know that director and I trust her inherently. But even if not, it's like, yeah, just to show them I can do it a different way, because sometimes that's what I think is being tested is like, can this person do it more than the way that they kind of rehearsed it and planned it? You know, like you don't want
Yeah.
locked in, you know?
Yeah, you gotta be able to be flexible. Exactly. Absolutely. But like I think what you're touching on is something that a lot of self tapes or they get worried about is like I like if it goes into the ether and never gets seen. But here's the thing. I don't I can tell I don't I can you give it it's not like you gave us 5 seconds, right? On average you're giving us what 2 to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't know, of tape, and I'm going through that, and we're able to pull everything we need intel wise about you as an actor. And if we aren't getting it, and but we feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't say that. I'd say, when we're getting it, we don't need you to go on tape again. Like we see it, right? But if we're like, oh, they're great, they're perfect for this, we know that the director, the producer aren't going to have the imagination for this part of the audition as we do, and to see that you guys could absolutely do this part. So have them go back on tape. Here are the notes, and we give the notes. Sometimes we're the ones who give the notes because we don't want to show you to the director because we're worried they'll have they'll hold bias against you in the scene for like not getting that one little part, like just in case, so sometimes just in case we have you go back on tape with these notes, then we show you. Other times we're like, hey, here's this person. We actually think we can have them go on tape with your notes. You give the notes. So we'll come back that way. So there's multiple times we'll do that. Galadriel in LaRoy, wonderful actress. She does an acting class in the Valley. And I went in there, and I remember this one actress, she was fantastic. I had her do a scene, fantastic. And we had to get through a lot of people. And I can't even remember, but I basically didn't really give her notes. Usually I give notes and I have somebody do it multiple times. We just didn't have the time anyway. And it was like a perfectly valid take. I didn't need her to go and do anything else. And it really, I could tell, bothered her. It bothered her. And I think that's important to remember, is that sometimes you guys are good and it's okay. I know it's hard for me to accept compliments as well and things, but you need to just say I did it and not expect, what did I do wrong? Right? What you're doing is you're showing us what you can do. And a lot of times in auditions, I'm sure, Matt, like you said, it's would you take direction? Since I'm there, I probably could have taken that as a self-tape, boom, done. I can show it. But instead, since we're here, why don't we do it again, and I can nitpick, and let's get this one little section, and ooh, that popped even more. Great. Did we need it to get you the job? Probably not. But since we're here, right?
That's something that I think comes with, just for the actors, I'll just say for my own experience, comes with life experience of, I feel way less needy as an actor nowadays. Like even on set working, I'm not looking. I think I used to be like, oh, what do you think? Do you want me to try it? Do you just trying to please so much. And now I'm kind of like, if they say something and it's something that I think is helpful, that's great. If they don't say anything, I'm like, okay, cool. I feel good about it. Let's go. And then if they say something, if I actually am almost resentful if they say something just to say something. Do you know what I mean? Like if they're just saying it, they're just trying to, and you're like, you don't need to, I don't need, but probably 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I probably did need a little of that. Just is it okay? Is it okay? Can I get a pat on the back? And
have you told them about, I'm assuming, your process for LaRoy?
Like
because
how I kind of like,
well, I mean, I like to tell this story because I think it's a fantastic example of how an actor can overthink, and how you went out of your way to say, uh, you know, fuck it. Like, sorry, am I allowed to say it?
say
Like,
that.
I'm just gonna do it. Just gonna throw it on tape. Since we're here, buddy, let's do this one too that I got. And you just did it. Now, I don't know that you can do it for everything, but for this kind of thing where it's a comedy and like, you just had fun, you did it. I know people probably hate the term "have fun with it," but like, you had fun with it, and
Yeah.
you improved and all that. And I was like, I think I was like recovering from COVID the one time I had it, in bed, just dying laughing, watching your audition, and then hearing, like, hearing you tell me about, oh my God, I can't believe because this is my process, this is what happened. I was like, well, see, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. That's
Yeah. So
why.
I didn't tell it. What happened was we were right here. Was working. My buddy Blake was putting me on tape for this thing. El Torino, I think it was. It was that one that what's his name got the blanking on his name right now. But anyway, it was like I always write my stuff out on index cards, and that was like 22 index cards for El Torino. It was like 4 scenes. It was a drama. We had the whole thing. And LaRoy, I mean, I don't even know that I don't even think at that point I had read the script. I literally just like saw the audition, and I think I had written it down because I had it on index cards, and I had only written it down and not looked at it. But it's what happens sometimes. I think what you're saying about you can have fun with it if the relationship to the character works. Like sometimes it just kind of something clicks. And that was the one that, like, as I was writing it, I'm like, oh, this is funny. Like I have a take on it. And without trying to get off book, I was like, yeah, it was in here. It was like 10 at night. I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted. But I had this other thing that's funny. And and we just did it. And the most fun part was I was like, hey, exactly what you said. Fuck it. We did I did a whole improv. I think it was like a very long improv. I did a whole phone call at the end, this whole thing, and it was just fun. And since then, I did this show in May, like right as the writer's strike was starting, Hotel Cocaine. And one of the guys on it is one of the producers on it. It's his father. He's normally an actor. His name's Maurice Comte, but on this, he's a producer.
Oh yeah.
It's his father's story. So Chris
Oh
Brown
wow.
doing it, and Maurice is just he's a producer on it. So we were there, we were all hanging out, and he goes, guys, I gotta tell you, I learned so much. I've seen like hundreds of tapes in the last couple of months. And I will just tell you guys this. Don't worry about the fucking words. He's like, if you're having fun, we're going to lean in and we're going to watch it. And if we see, and I try to tell everybody that I coach, I do these weekend intensives. I'm like, don't, like, they're going to get the word. They don't need you to go word perfect. Sure. Eventually, if it's Aaron Sorkin, actually he does. He'll be pissed at Rob.
Right.
A couple of people like that, but their writing is really good. Shonda Rhimes like that. Sorkin's like that. Their writing, you want to say they're writing exactly.
It's a rhythm to it.
So, but for the most part, like what Maurice said backs up what you said. Like I was legitimately having fun on that tape, and it came across. And that's what he was saying. When you make it your own, and he's like, guys, I'm telling you, like, don't worry about the mistakes. Everybody's so I'm curious to hear from your point of view, like, what's your thought? Just so everybody that I've told this to ad nauseum hears it from a casting director. What are your thoughts on someone being worried about being word perfect in these tapes? And if they like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, here's something to remember. Okay, I'm going to read with you, but in a live audition, but I think even in both cases, like I'm watching a self tape, especially, I don't remember what's literally, I'm not looking at the script. Like, I don't even know what's in the sides. I don't even care what are in the sides. Now the director and like the writer, director, or whatever, like they're watching it and they're hearing their words. So yeah, like it, to some extent, you absolutely need to say some of their words. But like I'm looking to see the scene, right? Not the words. And
Did you hear her
thing
say that? Yes.
Yeah. The thing I can't stand is when I see people acting. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, okay, I'm watching you act. This is fantastic. I want to see somebody inhabit the role, right? I want to see the person thinking as the character. When you say the words, I'm sure you guys hear this from your acting classes too, but like when I can tell when you're thinking about your words, when there's nothing behind and you're not thinking as the character, I can tell, oh, they're going to say this one and this, like each word, I hear it, right? But like that's not how people talk normally. That's you're not giving regular cadence, speech cadence. Like it's like, so that's how, one of the reasons, like we're watching a million auditions and it's the person who is like, oh my gosh, like I'm seeing the movie right here. Well, this is cool. This is really fun. Like I can see something a million times, but as soon as I see it being inhabited instead of acted, then I am like, I'm watching this and it's so fun for the first time.
I hope everyone heard it. I feel like I say a version of that and people kind of hear it, but like they need to hear it from your side. I'm so grateful that you just said that because I completely agree. And I hope everyone takes that in. I'm also looking, it's quarter of, so
Yeah, sorry.
no, on me. I want to open it up so people can, I'm going to put us back into like gallery views.
Oh, can I?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to do one quick thing that I didn't want to forget. One thing about self-tapes. I know it's a pain, but just make sure your audio is in sync with the video. Sometimes that messes up. So just make sure before you send it. We want to make sure you're heard. So sometimes just make sure your audio quality, we can hear you. That's all.
All right, that is it. Thanks again to Kellie Roy. Thank you for tuning in, whether you watched or you listened. We really appreciate having you. Be on the lookout for LaRoy, Texas. It's going to be in select theaters and streaming on demand April 12th. And if you dig this podcast and you want to share it with your friends, please take a screenshot of it, share it on social media, tell your friends about it. We really appreciate that. And if you're interested in any of the other 10,000 No's offerings, just head on over to 10,000nos.com and let us know what you need. All right, if you want to be a part of the Insiders community, like the conversation you heard today, that's available there as well. We're here to serve you, so whatever you need, just reach out and we will see you next week. We've got a little solo episode, and then the following 2 weeks, we've got the writer-director of LaRoy, Texas, Shane Atkinson, and then we've got the week after that, our star, John Magaro. So definitely tune in for those. All right, we'll see you next week.